welcome to the 2023 annual meeting of UKNOF. Yes, it's 2024, but this is when we report on activities for the previous year. This meeting is a little bit different. It's probably going to be the last one that we give to the community. Before I give you the update from the UKIF board, which is the first half of the meeting, I'm going to hand you over to Nigel Titley, UKNOF chair, for a few opening remarks.
It's lovely to see so many people here at an annual meeting. We're here to discuss how things have gone, but mostly to discuss how things are going forward. I think that's the important thing. It's very important, we think, that UKNOF continues as an institution, and because it's given so much to the community over the years. So let's kick off. Keith?
Okay, so thank you, Nigel, for opening remarks. And Nigel will be chairing the meeting. First item of business is my report as the Managing Director. As I say, this is likely to be UKIF's final such report to the community. There is a more detailed written report, which is contributions from the various directors and committee chairs. So there's a lot more detail in there. You can find that on the meeting site. And then once we have completed my presentation and any questions that come out of that, the various committee chairs and directors are all here if you have any questions for them. We're then going to hear a presentation from Dave Pomford about the UKNOF successor activities. And then there's a little bit of time for questions and discussion at the end. Hopefully we can wrap this meeting up in an hour. As has been mentioned while you were all joining the meeting, we're not using our usual webinar format here. We're using a Zoom meeting rather than a webcast. So please, if you can mute your audio and video unless asked. We're recording the video for the benefit of others. So the less people are showing up in video, then the cleaner that recording is for everybody. When we get to the questions part, if you want to ask questions, it's pretty much the usual protocol we have for UKNOF meetings. You can ask a question via Mattermost chat or Zoom audio. If you want to use the Mattermost chat, it's the public town square room, and tag your question with hash questions or raise your hand in Zoom. Then the chair will either read your question or ask you to speak. And then please unmute your audio and video if you're speaking to deal with that. So I'm going to recap the UKNOF mission here because I always do one more time, but I think if you're on this call, you probably understand what the UKNOF mission is about and the fact that there's still very much a need for something like this. So most of you will be familiar with UKIF. It was set up 20 years ago as an internet industry association that did a bit of a pivot, although it had a lot of the properties that we normally associate with non-profit company limited by guarantee in the UK internet space. Basically, for the past decade or more, it has been completely dedicated to being the legal entity to enable UKNOF for working. We've always tried to have a lightweight governance approach, and then there's been a huge amount of volunteer support and then oversight and accountability through various committees. It's no secret that ever since the pandemic, UKNOF has had some significant sustainability challenges, and I'm afraid that we have come to the conclusion this year that the UKNOF model is no longer a viable way of doing this. So what did we achieve in 2023? We did a bunch of stuff. We did 2 meetings, 51 and 52 were well attended with strong content. There was a lot of activity on the program committee front. However, the revenue from these meetings did not support our running costs and have depleted UKNOF's reserves further to the point where we just can't commit to running future events. The other thing that's exacerbated this as we've thrashed around for solutions is we've just not resolved difficulties in finding and funding people to run the business side of UKNOF, the boring stuff that nobody wants to do for free, but is absolutely essential to making events happen. So the UKNOF board has sadly and reluctantly decided that we can no longer running UKNOF, and we plan to wind up the UKIF legal entity during 2024. And then at UKNOF 52, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there, but we made a call to the community to find solutions to continue the spirit and practice of everything that is valuable about UKNOF. I'm pleased to see that various individuals and organizations have stepped up there, and we'll hear more from them shortly. So a little bit of recap of the events during 2023. We had UKNOF 51 in April. Both events were 1.5 day format. We got 100 people, UKNOF 51. The content seemed to go very well. The survey ratings gave it 83% positive. One of the things that we did there was to wind up the advisory committee and have a recognition session for the individuals and organizations that supported UKNOF over the years in that format. And then UKNOF 52, slightly more people because it was in London, slightly higher rating on the content, but that is when we paused events and asked for help. So program committee is currently running 16 volunteers. They're there to make sure that we have good content, both to find it and to filter it. One achievement that I've wanted for a long time that we managed to finally sign off on in 2023 was to have a charter published for the program committee, which you can find at that URL there. And this is definitely an area where we're not short of volunteer support and engagement. There's currently no vacancies in the program committee. They're in a holding pattern until we figure out what the future is. But all the program committee members that have spoken about are enthusiastic to continue contributing content to whatever comes next. We added 5 new members to the program committee. The names are there. And the other thing was that the program committee chair function was restructured. It was really too much work for one person, so we split it into 2 functions: administration of the program committee, which is Dave Wilson and Anne Johnson, splitting that between them, and then generating the content for meetings is now being split between James Bensley and Matt Jebb. So I'm very grateful to all these people for stepping up. Dave, did you want to add any comments at this point as the one of the PC chair representatives?
I've got to be honest, you've pretty much covered all of it. The only thing I can add is to, on behalf of all the other people who have worn this particular hat, to thank everyone who has contributed to the program committee. The volunteers, they're the ones who have done most of the legwork on the content and making the events happen. Everyone who has volunteered for that, it has been enormously appreciated and frankly made UKNOF what it is and brought it its value. So thank you very much indeed to everybody who's contributed.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So moving on to the other committee, communications committee, which handles social media, mailing list outreach, communications process. Steve has been chairing that this year. And again, the CC has committed it's going to stick the task until we complete the wind up and the handover. It's important through these periods of change and to maintain that communication. So that's what's going to be going on. Steve, did you want to add any comments there?
No, just to say thanks to all the people that were on the committee, and thanks to Leo and Leo Vigoda and Kathy Almond, who left this year. And they've been on it for quite a while. So yeah. And we'll see what we can do going forward.
Okay, thank you, Steve, and thank you everyone in the CC. So onto the other structure that we have, which is the board. We started the year with 6 directors. 4 of them are still here, and 4 of them are on the call. Unfortunately, we lost 2 board members during 2023. Lou and Alex tried their best to contribute, but decided that they needed to resign during the course of the year. Again, we're very grateful for all their efforts and contributions and what they did. And then the way that we've been running the board meetings is that the chairs from the PC and the CC have non-voting observer status in that. We've been doing regular updates from the board to the committees, just to keep everyone in the loop. So the ugly part, the financial report. So how did we do? We made 37K over the course of the year. And basically that mostly came from event sponsorship and patronage with a contribution from events registrations. That was not sufficient to meet our operating costs. After the direct event costs, there was all kinds of indirect costs of supporting the events, keeping our IT platforms live, miscellaneous expenses and moving things around, contractor consulting time. That doesn't show all the contractor consulting time, just what was actually invoiced for the year. And that left us with an operating deficit of 19k, which we had reserves for, but as you can see, it doesn't leave us with much. We have about 17k in the bank. Once we deal with outstanding liabilities for 2023, then we're going to finish up with about 8. That's enough to keep the lights on for a year, but it's not really enough to do anything more than that. If you want to see a bit more detail, then Laura is on the call and she's happy to take your questions. There's also the actual detailed financial statement breakdown available on the event site. So I'm going to make some observations about sustainability, which are kind of like lessons learned over the past 4 years and longer. I'm not going to bang on about any one of these individual points. You can see a lot more detail about that in my report. I think the important thing is I want to make sure that it's understood that these are not issues that are specific to UKNOF. They're systemic to the ecosystem and environment that we find ourselves in. I hope that these are lessons that can be learned by any successful future organization. You know, it's not like we didn't try to solve these problems. We did a bunch of strategy sessions and position papers within the board. We chewed through 3 years and 5 directors. We just really couldn't come up with good solutions. That doesn't mean that the solutions don't exist. It just kind of means that we're not able to figure out what the actual solution is. So, how does that leave us for next year? The main thing that caused us to do a pause is that when we make a commitment to a venue, we need to make sure that we've got enough revenue reserves in the bank and revenue going forward that we're not making an insolvent commitment, and we can't do that anymore. So our priority for 2024, once we decided we were winding things down, is to leave enough money in the bank to keep the online platforms going until the end of the year or until a new organization is able to take these on. We still need to wrap up the finances. As I say, there are uninvoiced outstanding contractor liabilities, and we're hoping to use some intangible assets to offset these. We're still working on valuing and settling that, but we're reasonably confident that we can finish up in a place where we're not going to wind up insolvently, that there will be a sort of neutral cash and balance position or close to it by the end of the year. So, community resources, you know, there are cash assets and there are non-cash assets. And I think that in some ways, the real value of UKNOF is the assets that you can't put a value on. And these are generated by the community, and therefore it's very much my view that they belong to the community. The UKIF legal entity is merely stewards of these resources. We think it's desirable that they're continued or at least preserved in some fashion. So we would like to be able to hand these resources on, or at least some of them, to any appropriate organization that follows, or wherever, you know, there may be more than one organization that's an appropriate home for them. You know, and both the UKNOF Charter and the memorandum articles of UKIF Limited place some constraints on what we can do with these. So one of the things that we're still working on within the board is some guiding principles for what we should consider before passing these resources on. You know, we don't want them to finish up in the wrong hands where you all get spammed or something like that. What do the community resources consist of? I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of them. Actually, when you sit down and put a list of them, it's quite long. I think the most important thing is the talks that have been given. You know, we have slides of these, we have videos of these on the YouTube channel. There's all the collaboration platforms, all the places that enable us to have meetings like this and allow everyone to come together and share information. There's a bunch of websites. There are various tools which, as you know, unless you've actually involved in running the organization, you're probably not very familiar with, but there's a whole bunch of things that we have generated over the years which are useful for running internal meetings and supporting this type of organization. We have all our sponsors and patrons. We don't just have an address book of all the people that have ever contacted us. We have a fairly loyal following, and various sponsors that are approaching us at the moment. We're basically saying, well, you know, we're changing to new management. Is it okay if we pass your details on to the new guys? Same with speakers. There's all the social media channels and groups. I mean, some of them have well over 1,000 followers in them. There's a whole bunch of domains that we use to support all of that stuff. And then various people around the country have got boxes of wireless access points and cables and webcast widgets and things like that, which may not necessarily be on UKNOF's asset register, but are certainly an important part of the meeting and of running the meetings, and again, are a useful resource going forwards. So, handover plans. I think that from the UK board point of view, we want to enable continuation of whatever it is that UKNOF does that is still of value to the community. Our responsibility is to wind things up and ideally find a new home for these resources. We will keep the online platforms running meantime. I think one thing I should do is thank A10, who were almost the sponsor of UKNOF 52, but instead we finished up dedicating the money they gave us to keeping the platforms running. And I think the important thing is that it's not up to you to decide what comes next. That is for the community to decide. I think that that process has certainly started. And I hope to see it continue and facilitate that without obstructing that. So there's a little bit more from those working leaves plans shortly. One person that is absolutely essential and core to running UKNOF over the past decade is Dinesh. I just wanted to give Dinesh a chance if there was anything he wanted to add to what I've said so far.
Wow. Okay. Well, you took me by surprise, actually. Thank you. Well, I just have to say it was a lot of fun. Okay, towards the end it wasn't so much, but growing the community, bringing people together, that's the thing that keeps me going, and UKNOF allowed me to do that. So thank you to the community for making me grow and bringing me job satisfaction. I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure working with everyone who's been involved with UKNOF. That includes all the sponsors, it includes all the teams. I mean, in the early years, Mike was my tech guy, to-go guy. So thank you, Mike. I know you're on the call here. We wouldn't have been able to grow UKNOF if it wasn't for you helping me in those days. So thank you, Mike. But yeah, I just like to say I feel a little bit sad that we've come to this point because I just loved what we did with UKNOF. But the thing is that we've also got to be realistic, and of course I have my thoughts on the way that UKNOF should go or the way that the community should go, but I'm willing to hear what Dave and Richard have to say about taking things forward. And I look forward to I do look forward to being part of that community, maybe not running things, but being part of actually sitting there and enjoying the talks rather than running around like a headless chicken. But yeah, also I'd like to say that I am not just going to disappear. I will be around to help with any transition. I will also be around while any new organization that takes over is doing things. Whatever knowledge I have, I'm more than happy to give to whoever comes along and pass on the contacts that I have. So, but no, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Dinesh. So yeah, I mean, I just want to underline what Dinesh said. It's been a lot of fun. It's nearly 20 years since we started doing this thing. And 50 plus meetings, depending on how exactly you define a meeting. I like to think we've made a difference, that people have learned stuff, that we've helped raise the game in terms of the UK's infrastructure and operational best practice, that we've all improved our networks, and I certainly have, and certainly learned a bunch of things. But it's not down to any one individual, it's down to the community. So please, everyone who's here, everyone who's ever participated, give yourself some credit for this accomplishment. I'm moving on to the next phase of my career. I have no plans to be a stranger to the industry or the community, but I do intend to get out of everyone's way. I'm here to facilitate the handover to wherever comes next. And then, as Dinesh says, I'll see you on the less stressful other side. So it always feels really inadequate when I do one of these, but I just want to thank everybody. This is not an exhaustive list. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that have supported and contribute, all of our speakers over the years, all of the committee members and chairs, the board directors, the contractors that have done work for us, the suppliers and the venues have always been a pleasure to work with. People who have funded UKNOF in various ways, the annual patrons, the event sponsors, the individual friends, all the people who have attended and participated, and all the production crew and many, many others, and the entire community, because community is what it's about. So we're just about at the end of the first half of the meeting. There is room for some questions if anybody would like to ask them, either by raising your hand in Zoom or by hashtagging questions in the public room. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. That's good. That probably means you all want to hear what comes next. Okay, at this point, Chris, at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and get out of the way. And I will hand you over to Dave Pumford, who will be giving a presentation on what I believe is going to be called UKNOF.
I think it's best that I unmute. Hi, everyone. And Keith, I just want to start off by saying, appreciate all the work you and the team have done with UKNOF. Actually, we want to carry that spirit on as we, build something new for the new for the community. But actually, still, hang on, I can't share my screen, unfortunately. Hang on. But actually work on something that builds on the foundations that you've built and actually expand the remit a little bit so we get more people that are interested in the internet community at large. Thanks very much for sharing, for enabling that. So, those that know me, hi, and those that don't know me, my name's Dave Pumford. I am CEO at PTX Technologies and also VP at SGGS International. I've been in the industry for about 10 years, working quite closely with the IXs, the NAS players, carriers, and always asked to get involved in the community. And this was my time to put my money where my mouth is and actually help build something on top of what the UKNOF team had already built. So what we're calling UKNOF, the name isn't actually verified yet. We just basically put a name together and we'll be asking the community at the time. But what we do want to make sure is what we have worked with the community in the short term is looking at what the sort of mission and the objectives like, what our initial structure is going to be outlined as, and how the organization will put on its path to sustainability. And obviously we'll read all the documents that UKNOF have presented and hopefully learn from their experiences as well. So to kick it all off, there's 4 key areas. Obviously the distribution of clue is still quite important and we want to continue that. We want to be not just about internet infrastructure, but also, people get into and expand the remit so we can get probably more members to attend the events. And we want them to get something back, that money to see the 4 key areas that we provided to the community that we've been discussing with was obviously still no. Obviously, the developments are the community development aspect. We've seen significant success with Net London and Net Manchester, and how can we leverage a wider community to establish further regional communities such as Net Wales, Net Scotland, and take that content that's created from a regional level and show it to a more national and international audience. We think it's important that professional network development is included. We've seen this with DENOG and NYNOG, having that ability to build in industry connections. I'm sure we've all found events and found, connections and actually job opportunities at UKNOF events and, wider IX events. So we want to push that. And obviously most important is that inclusivity and diversity. I remember attending my own UKNOF, first ever UKNOF event in 2013. And actually seeing that community made me realize how big a network engineering was than ASA firewalls. Sorry, Neil. So we want to make sure that we focus on these key areas, and these are our objectives. We feel that these are in line with what wider successful NOGs are also trying to facilitate. We've seen the growth of SGNOG, PLNOG, DNOG, and NYNOG. So this is what we feel that, and the people we've presented it to already seem in support of that as well. The initial structure that we're trying to put together at the moment is we want it to continue to be a not-for-profit membership organisation. We've said this from the start. Make sure that everything that we generate is into the community has their voices heard. I've been frank to everyone, and I will continue to be, like, this needs to be sustainable. We need to have the support of sponsorships, but we also need to make sure they get value out of that. On a model approach of UKNOF before the pandemic, just with the dedication of volunteers. And we've set out realistically is a founding management committee. This will be a chair, 3 members appointed by the not-for-profit organisations and the programme committee chair. We're just for a maximum of 2 years before management committee elections. We've agreed that, we've got agreement of a initial funding from Links and LONAP and a third non-profit that I just can't confirm at this moment. I think everyone knows anyway, but realistically is that we're just waiting for final confirmation. Enough funding to make our community events self-sufficient, so they'll pay for the first couple. And this is without sponsorship, but we want to make sure that there's enough money in the bank that we can, plan these events. We obviously would love the existing programme committee to move over with options of current or previous people that have left to return. I don't have the full details on that right now, but we're being very open. A couple of people have reached out to me already, and I've been consistent saying, we still want your support. It's just that we'd like the content to come to our own events. And obviously the volunteer committee, these are people that would like to get involved to support the community, whether it's, from a social aspect, whether it's from a support on the day, handing out badges, like actually having involvement and being recognised for their involvement. Trying to be very lightweight on the committees, management, programme, volunteer. We're not trying to do anything else at this time because we just need to see how it goes. And we're trying to mirror some of the other organisations that we've seen internationally. This will be across 2024. Obviously, we want to get an event this year. So we're not planning on trying to build any sort of I would say, actual structures, formal structures, like a limited company this time in 2024. We just want to get the event sorted, and we're leveraging Links and LONAP as trading accounts to get this going in their teams. But effectively, if we can prove this is a success and learn from, I'm sure, our many mistakes of the first event and try and get then more of a formal organisation that becomes membership driven, because we want to make sure that this is not just an event, but a community for people that are interested in the UK internet infrastructure and its influence on the wider region. And we set out a few key areas that was expected of this. So obviously a defined membership criteria, one member, one vote, open elections, the transitional board. We've committed to 2 years, but there's also this point that some of the transitional members of the management committee might need to stay on, so they're staggered. So this is why we put 2 to 4 years, but we'll be pretty visible to everyone at that point of what it is, and there'll be wider agreement. As I said, we've seen quite a lot of community engagement already, which has been great, and we've listened to that feedback. And of course, a clear respect policy for community interactions, both, at the events and electoral forums, and want to make sure that we kind of mirror some of the development that UKNOF already had as well. Sorry, my keyboard has been a mess. The one thing that's been pushed to us constantly is about oversight and transparency. I believe that realistically, we want to make sure that this becomes a sustainable organization, and builds on the success, because we know that the internet community needs a home, not just going to IX events or, hyperscale events, but somewhere where there is distribution of clear, and actually being able to understand where the industry is going at large, especially across the UK. So, and refreshing the board sometimes can help that. So we've personally set out to make sure that the staggered elections, community nominations, and also community removal mechanism. This is what we've seen with other non-profits and the wider community have had issues. So, we want to deliver for the community, so they need to have their voices heard. And obviously, we want to continue some of the transparency that we've seen with UKNOF about their finances. We'll continue that. And we want to make sure that everything that we're doing is in the UKNOF community's best interests. So some of these details, again, this is all high level and will be formed over the next, 12 to 18 months. But we wanted a plan that was agreed with the community, and this is where we've got so far. And we've already kind of set out a date that we feel kind of works, and it will be in July 2024. We've picked the venue. I just can't confirm it this second as much as I'd like to. But what we're trying to do at the moment is just get the foundations together of an event that we see where we go. It will be based in London, just to try and get my main focus personally is to really get the non-profits behind this, which is then feeding into sponsorship, also interested into actually making this a success, especially with so much talent in the UK network infrastructure industry, that we should have a big event like this, and we need to understand lessons learned from UKNOF, but also understand this isn't a continuation of UKNOF. We want to make sure it's clear that it's learning from those lessons, but it is a new event, and I've being very direct on that, because we also want to make sure that this stands on its own 2 feet. I have been requested quite a lot of people to say, look, don't just see this as a continuation, see it as a new thing. We'll make our own mistakes, but also as well, like, we're really pushing to deliver a successful event for the community. So we've created the mailing list, and we've put up all this information I've gone through on the UKNOF. You can go and check it out and put the date on there as well. I don't really have everything else right now, but this is the kind of direction that we've gone in. And I am open for questions, which I'm sure there are many, but we'll also share this as well afterwards. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dave. Do we have any questions? Tom.
Hello, Dave. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tom.
Hello. A couple of questions. I think maybe just one point I'd love to make. I'll rattle them off as best as I can remember. I should preface this by saying that there is an inherently large amount of your presentation, which I find really positive, refreshing, and a good, I think, view for the future on how this community should continue. So thank you very much for all the work you've put in, and others, of course. The first thing that I wanted to just point out was that UKNOF is an exceptionally established brand. And I would be quite concerned in two ways of throwing that away in favour of the UKNOF brand. I'm also still quite concerned that that forms part of a derogatory phrase in England. That's not a wonderful thing to have to think about, but I'd be very careful of adopting that. And I realise it's pretty much a standard sort of elsewhere around the world, but we do have to think about these things in our backyard when it is us and local culture. So that short way of saying that, I would really prefer it if we could maintain the UKNOF brand. I think there's an inherent value in doing that if we can have some form of orderly transfer. The second point was a bit more of a question. There was a point on there, obviously, about fostering local communities such as Net Manchester and Net London. I'd love you to expand on how you see that happening in more detail. And a third point, genuinely, that was it. It was time frames for. You've mentioned a lot about timeframes for appointing a member-elected board. But how do you see the time frame for a new organisation standing on its own feet financially?
No, it's fine. So the first question about the continuation of the brand, that's no one has asked for that. Everyone has asked for a new brand. So whilst there's inherent standing,
I think I mentioned it to you previously.
I think you're the only one. Okay, I'll correct that. You're the only one that's mentioned it to me. So whilst we've been very clear on the other meetings that we've had, and I also don't want UKNOG to be seen as a continuation of UKNOF, realistically. So again, we want to make sure that it's standard, that this is a new community with a fresh board. It's basically got fresh objectives. And whilst UKNOF has been, very successful brands, I think you're the only one that's mentioned it. And what we're also doing about the name as well is that we've just gone with UKNOG in the short term because it was something that we came up. Once we've had this call, we're going to do a poll online, and we're just going to give it out there to the community to set the name. So I'm sure I'll have Nettie make Nettie face, but if they agree with the UKNOG, they agree with it. We've just done this temporarily because I needed the name in the short term. So to answer that point, there's been no interest to carry on UKNOF, and we'll also be making sure that the name is selected by the community so it doesn't look like I've turbocharged it. To answer your second question, I really believe what you've done with Net Manchester is incredible. You should be proud of that. And it's been highlighted so many times, especially Net London, grassroots campaign looking in, and I've been lucky enough, and you've pushed me to present there before. Getting that sort of content on a regional level to feed into something on a national, even if it's just like, a talk that's really good in Manchester that then comes in and, does it as part of, Net UK or UKNOG, is something that a couple of people have raised to me, and I think it's such a good idea. What we're trying to say is that we could maybe use some of if there's any sort of profits on the events to help fund a Net Scotland, pay for a room and a projector or something to try and get them off the ground, because I think they're such good communities. So that's how we've seen that helping. Ironically, the other name that's been floated about for UKNOG has been Net UK. But again, we just want to put it out there to the community and see what they think on that one. And then regarding the financial stability, I have been very, very pushy with the non-profits about putting their money where their mouths are. And to be honest, they've been very supportive. All the main points is that the majority, they need to have some oversight where this money is being, they will be appointing a member on the management committee themselves. That 2-year period in the UKNOF, not UK, we won't need it.
I just to note, you cut out a few times there. I think that was everyone noticed that. But I suppose my point there was about transitioning away from being funded by the not-for-profits that are obviously helping in a massive way to restart the organisation. Is there a time frame for that?
So, yes, so 2 years we've put it in. We put it in for the 2-year phases that we wanted the first phase to the first year to be about just getting the event going, seeing where we go, and second year trying to formalise it on that point.
All right. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yes. No, that 2 years is a completely reasonable time frame. Lastly, just to follow up on the point about the community polling, Nettie McNettyface is definitely going to win. Will you at least indulge me and perhaps others in making sure that there is a UKNOF option on that?
Sure. And they turn around and go, but I want to be very clear that this shouldn't be seen as a continuation, and I will continue to push that.
I think that's relatively well known that UKIF and UKNOF are separate in a sense, and continuing the brand with new ownership or new management is a reasonable thing that happens in a lot of businesses. So I will yield my time at this point. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, no worries. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Dave. Can we go on to Dave Wilson now, who's had his hand up for a long time?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Dave.
All right. It's a metaphorical hand. It's not that I've been studying it. It's all good. I would say you've mentioned that the first meeting will be in July. I would just like to take a moment to strongly encourage you to pin that down to the particular days or day as soon as you are able, because I know a lot of people, both in the community in general, people on this call, people who run things, events of various kinds over the course of the year, will want to try and attend, and getting that date nailed down into the diary, get first dibs on whenever it is you want, is going to be of value to you. Because I've got a bunch of things that are already wanting my time in July. I want to attend, but I don't know when in July you mean yet. So I would say there's definitely value there if you can.
I would have loved to have said, here's the date, and trust me, we were nearly there on it as well. We just need a bit of confirmation. It will be early July on this point, and this is a date that we're trying to make sure that doesn't clash with anything else. As you can imagine, we're all busy people, and also we want it to be, it's not too close to school holidays as well, when everyone starts going on holiday. So trust me, the moment I have it, I will announce it. We wanted to, before we did any big announcements, we wanted to make sure we had this meeting first, and then turn around and go.
As rapidly as you are able, but no faster, is entirely a good answer.
Okay.
Only other thing I can say is I've got to be honest, to support Tom in his statements about UKNOF as a brand. There is a lot of love for the UKNOF brand. I appreciate that there is a desire to have a gap, a break, a whatever it is, but you spent all of your first section of stuff saying how appreciated what UKNOF has been, and how much value there is of doing it, and wanting to take that forward. There is a balance between being the new guys and the new management versus taking forward all those things, and there is no sin in taking forward those things. And I, for one, when the survey comes out, I will be finding the UKNOF option, and I will be picking up.
And you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I do, and I think that as well. Like we haven't, I haven't just gone and sat into some sort of spiral tower on my own and wrote all this up. Like we've been active with people to say, what's your feedback been? You've been in those meetings as well. I've just not seen that desire, but at the end of the day, it's an option there. Let's see what happens. Again, this is meant to be a community organisation, you know. And again, as Keith puts out, you know, even what we're doing, we're still stewards for this community.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and generally, all my main focus has been to try and get as much, I guess, financial support to get it going in the short term. You know, so, and this is even on the sponsorship side. So, yeah, let's go. We'll see where we go from there. Sorry, Nigel.
All I would ask is that you be open to those who haven't yet shared their voices, because I appreciate you've been focusing on the bootstrapping, on the getting the sponsorship from various people, getting everything going, but that will have led you to be talking to particular sets of people, and not necessarily those who are largely ignorant of some of the backstory and the history and the running of things, and that they quite like you. But anyway,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see as we go.
It's one of those things to be discussed later. Just be open to the options is all I would ask.
Okay, we'll see.
Thanks, both of you. I think what has come out of this and out of the past two questions is that Dave and his consortium do need to make sure they have consulted with the community and not just with the community that they're currently talking to. And I think that's something that we all have to be well aware of. And defining the community is actually something that is sometimes quite difficult. And it's something that the board has cudgelled its brains over for a long, long time and has never really come to an appropriate definition. But that's passing the torch on. Marek has also had his hand up for a long time.
Thank you, Nigel. And Dave, again, thank you for bringing this meeting together, and obviously the previous meetings that you've involved myself and several others in. We've talked a lot about community, and that while this new thing wants to make a break, there is still the board of this new entity is still going to be the steward of the same community. For that reason, I would again say, make sure you have UKNOF on the option list, because if you are talking about the same community and you are relying upon the same, or at least inviting the same program committee from that community to generate the content, I think it would be very, very surprising not to give that community that choice. Equally, though, I can understand optics and branding will be very important, because funders may wish to see a different brand and a change. However, I would caution, in offering the community a choice, the community in the UK, and indeed the people on this call, are mostly white men. And maybe those shouldn't be in charge of okaying NOG. That's all I have to say.
Like, I think my view on this as part of this community, meeting around, is I think this community, as being part of it, can be very insular. And generally, I'd never really been involved that much in the UKNOF, or generally the things I got involved in this because I seen the value and the need for a wider community. To give you an example, a guy that is a systems engineer went to a LONAP event because he wanted to understand more about networking, but he wasn't a traditional network engineer, and he didn't go to UKNOF or anything. That is the main reason why we've expanded the aims and the objectives and who should become part of this community. And my concern is that this continuation of, okay, we're the community, and you're given this voice, and I'm obviously going to be passionate about a rebrand, because you're right, optics are important, and we want the right people to understand that this is moving forward and there's things in there as well. But I want it to also be open to a wider community than not just the people we've spoken to. I've pushed out quite a lot to get as many people into meetings, into calls, to say, what's your voice? And regarding the name Nog, I take it on board. Like, this is why we said, look, we're going to do it. But what I was trying to leverage was the wider global communities that are built around internet infrastructure, PL Nog and YNOG, DNOG. Like, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. But that being said, let's just put it out there and see what happens. My view is that, if we carry on UKNOF and then there's problems then looking at, it's just seen as a continuation, we're just going to be back where we are in 2 years' time when there's no sustainability there. So I'd be very aware with that with everyone, because, I've pushed the non-profits to really get behind this, but they won't be able to fund it forever. Okay.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Merrick?
I mean, it reiterates the sort of the same points that I did. I totally understand where you're coming from, but in offering the choice of a name which perhaps uniquely within English slang is a slur and obviously isn't in the Netherlands or similar, perhaps one should consider the respect policy, which everyone has always talked about, whether it's actually even respectful to offer the community that choice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, let's see what we do and get the wider community involved, not just everyone on this call.
Indeed.
We'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, I'm not quite sure which Joe you are, but you have your hand up. What's your question?
Hi, it's Joe Waite from Bing from FidoNet. Sorry, I hadn't changed my name. I realised when I logged in, I did try and change it. So there's 2 points. The first one may well have been covered. Apologies, I haven't been involved in this before. If there's not profits willing to put money into an operators group, why are they not just supporting UKNOF and UKIF? And forgive me if thing, but the other point that's just occurred to me when talking about do we keep the UKNOF or UKNOG or anything other, is the NO, the network operators, part of the issue? If we're looking to expand in a wider group, is network operators just specifically it down more to ISPs and the kind of traditional UKNOF links LONAP type meeting members and excluding almost by name the wider sort of network people in general?
Yeah, to answer your second question first, I agree. Like, I would use Net UK personally because it's something different. It's a wider bracket and it addresses what's being raised on this call, and it fits with what's created in Net London and Net Manchester as well. So, yeah. It was just that we used this name because it got formulated in EPF and it's now here it is, but we never planned on keeping it. We just needed something to kind of say this is Project UKNOG. And secondly, regarding your first question, I believe the non-profits wanted a change in organisation to see, I guess, fresh talent to come through in this as well. So generally, this is a new organisation. There's new people on it. They wanted a fresh approach to it. It's their money at the end of the day. So this is where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Joe, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I mean, again, I would add my support to potentially keeping the UKNOF, aside from the point I raise about expansion, but I do also support the fact that UKNOF is an established brand and that we should very much consider the keeping of that.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? Mike Hughes. Mike, go ahead.
Hello, hi Dave. I will also second what several other people have said. You said, but you're the only one. There's another quite large British organisation that was trying to convince people they were the only one when lots of other people were having problems recently. So I think you have been working in an echo chamber. I know it's early days. Please talk to people, honestly.
I think
question. So that's that was a point rather than necessarily a question. Second, so let's go on to the question. Talking about meeting attendance, one of the challenges that UKIF running UKNOF had a problem converting to was paid attendance and trying to find a correct price point. What is the vision initially during the transitional period where we're being funded by Links, LONAP and others? And then what might the long-term plan be, or is, if there even is one? So, I mean, if you could you talk us through what you think that's going to be in terms of, you know, making these inclusive meetings? Because one thing we did see when UKNOF had to start charging registration fees was that the meetings became suddenly inaccessible for quite a large class of people. So that's one question. And then the second question, you're talking about a membership org. How are you going to define the members? Or what are you going to be talking about in terms of charging members? Would it be like you know, an individual membership, a corporate membership, etc.? And then also in terms of members versus meeting attendance, I take it these the meetings that you're holding are not only going to be open to members, they're going to be open to all. So there's two main questions there. One of them is
answer
attendance, the other one's membership.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
it's fine. I appreciate your questions, Mike. So I think that regarding the comments about echo chamber and it's around the same, there has been multiple meetings that we've invited quite a lot of people to, not that me go and you're select. We said they're open, people can join. There's been people in the program committee, and I know quite a lot of this community does talk together, otherwise it wouldn't be on this call. So I know for a fact that we have tried, and I'm going to argue that point, that we have tried to listen to people and articulate it. Just because one person or two people on this call's voices haven't been heard doesn't mean that we're trying to ignore you. This is why we've come here and we're trying to explain it. Some of the things that I'm hearing back, I get it. You know, we want it. We want to see more UKNOF on the brand and continuation. It's good feedback. Regarding how my vision for the actual organisation to be more sustainable, the biggest thing that we're hearing from sponsors that were speaking to it was that realistically they felt that it wasn't worth the return of investing in UKNOF, bluntly. And they wanted to see more of a community feel, that they didn't feel so hostile when they came to do presentations. And this is their words, not mine. So my hope is that expanding the community to not just be operators, but to be more the internet at large, and that bigger draw of different presentations that we show, and also a younger community as well. They turn around and get the more people that are entry level into that. I think that having that diversity to get that attendance up, and also that less focus on operation, but also focus on actually doing good for the internet across the UK, actually attracts more sponsorships that want to return and they see the value of it, and it's in their calendar. So that's the one thing I want to tackle, and that's why I'm nervous about carrying on the brand, bluntly. Secondly, you turn around and go that we just want it, I just want this community to grow, because it's give a lot to me, and so do the non-profits. Sorry, what was your second question, Mike?
So there's two main questions. Obviously, we spoke about attendance and costs of attendance, and I spoke about the issues that UKNOF had converting to the paid model, and that it actually significantly cut the amount of people that were attending. And yes, that came out of the fact that UKNOF was finding it harder to cover its cost purely through sponsorship. You've said you think you have a way to maybe get sponsors more engaged, which is great. But what do you see, certainly during the transitional period, are these going to be free to attend or very, very cheap?
No.
So how are you going to do
it? We're looking at what some of the pricing that we've seen around the other NOGs as well, and looking at it to be more similar. I know that UKNOF did some things to make it cheaper for students as well, like that's been fed back to me as well. Generally, I don't have all those details but all those details to hand, Mike. But my main focus realistically is get the ticket as cheap as possible. Regarding the membership, I think we were discussing something whether it was a paid member, like a £25 token member yearly, and it just comes off the price of a ticket event. So you feel like you're getting something out of it, but we feel people are engaged. This is all just being floated about right now. The main thing is to get the events and to get a wider community into the first event. This is why we're being more light touch on quite a lot of the operational piece, like the background and the foundations in the first year, because we want to prove to some sponsors like, look, it's worth it. Come in, there's a big community there, you can advertise it. That being said, it's still a community-led event, and this is why we're putting in some things to make sure that they can elect to the board and they can remove from the board, they can see what we're up to. So it's finding that balance, and I know we're not going to get it right at the start, and I know someone will say things on both sides, but at least that's my view to try.
Okay, Mike, does that answer your question?
To some extent. Not entirely, but to some extent.
Okay, well, that's good then. Any other questions? I can't see anything. Okay, right. Keith, do you want to make any closing remarks? Because I think we've pretty well wound up now.
I think we are, yes. Just in time for lunch here and just in time for everybody to get home for dinner in the UK. So, no, that was great. Thank you very much, Dave, Richard, for taking the time to be here and to share what you're doing and have a good discussion. Be open to answering everyone's questions. It sounds really good. I love the founding principles. I love that I'm not going to have to get involved in all these details anymore. So thank you all very much. Again, any thanks are inadequate for the past 2 decades of efforts, but it certainly sounds like there's a good basis for carrying the torch forward. So I think that probably a next step is there should be some discussions from a UKIF point of view. The next step, there should be some discussions between the UKIF board and the other people behind what for now is being called UKNOF, so that we can figure out what do you want, what do you not want in terms of handover. I look forward to the first event in July. I don't think there's anything else I need to say at this point. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Keith. And there is something I would like to say, which is that Keith has founded UKNOF, and he has, through unstinting efforts over the past 20 years, kept it going. In the early stages, single-handedly, in the later years with the help of the UKIF board. But Keith has done an enormous amount of work, and I think that we should all be grateful to him. Thank you very much, Keith. And with that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.